Welcome to our YouTube channel, Pete. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking a deep dive into the world of Formula One, but not for the usual reasons. We're not going to be talking about fastest laps or daring overtakes or anything like that. Instead, we're focusing on the crashes, the ones that made everyone wince. And teams count the cost. We've got some incredible data from a Reddit post that breaks down the costliest crashes of the 2024 season. And let me tell you, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, they are quite eye-watering, aren't they? It's funny, isn't it? When we think of F1, we often think of speed and precision. But these crashes remind us that it's a sport where the margins for error are incredibly small, and the consequences can be extremely expensive.
Exactly. So our mission today is to try and figure out who are the biggest crash culprits, how much these incidents actually cost,
Well,
if there's a pattern to where and why these crashes happen. To help me break down all of this, I've got our expert with me. Now, according to this Reddit post, the driver with the most expensive crashes in 2024 is none other than Sergio Perez, racking up a bill of $4.86 million.
yeah, that's a huge amount, isn't it? Especially when you consider the budget cap in F1. Teams have a limited amount of money to spend each season. So a crash like that, it doesn't just damage the car, it impacts their ability to develop and upgrade throughout the year. It's a real setback.
Right. It's like a domino effect. So let's dive into some of Perez's biggest crashes. His most expensive one happened in Monaco, a track known for its tight corners and unforgiving barriers. The damage there was a whopping $2.12 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? That's almost the cost of building an entire new car. And while it's important to note that this particular crash wasn't solely Perez's fault, as it involved multiple cars, it still highlights the financial risks involved in racing at Monaco.
Absolutely. Then we have his crash in Baku, where a coming together with Carlos Sainz cost Red Bull another $950,000.
Again, a racing incident where the blame could be shared. But it does raise an interesting point about shared responsibility in crashes and how even a small mistake can have major financial repercussions for both teams involved.
For sure. And lastly, there's Perez's qualifying crash in Hungary. The damage was estimated at $772,000. Now, this one didn't look as dramatic as the other two, but I'm guessing it involves some pretty expensive components.
You're spot on. Even seemingly minor crashes can be costly in F1 when you think about the intricate gearbox, the suspension, and all the high-tech components packed into these cars. Even a small impact can cause significant damage. Replacing these parts doesn't come cheap.
Now, while Perez might be the individual crash champion, the team with the highest overall crash bill is actually Williams, with a staggering $11 million in damages. That's more than double the next team.
It's a huge sum, and it really underscores the financial strain that crashes can put on a team, especially one that's not at the front of the grid like Williams. It limits their resources and their development potential, making it even harder to compete with the top teams.
And a large chunk of that damage comes from Alexander Albon, who accounted for over $4 million in crash costs.
Yeah, Albon definitely had a tough season, with a string of incidents that put a real dent in Williams' budget. Let's start with his crash in Australia, which was his most expensive one, totaling $1.35 million. Not only did he damage his own car, but he also took out Logan Sargent, forcing Williams to withdraw their second car for the rest of the weekend.
Wow. A double whammy. It must have been a logistical nightmare for Williams, trying to source a replacement chassis mid-season.
Absolutely. And then in Japan, he collided with Daniel Ricciardo, resulting in another $880,000 worth of damage.
It seems like wherever Albon went, trouble followed. In Mexico, a practice collision with Oliver Bierman added $1.22 million to the bill.
And to make matters worse, he had another big crash in qualifying in Brazil, costing Williams another $932,000.
That's 4 major crashes, all exceeding $880,000.
Yeah.
You have to wonder how this impacted the team's morale and their ability to focus on car development.
It must have been incredibly challenging, especially as they were already operating with a tight budget. It really highlights the delicate balance teams have to strike between pushing for performance and managing risk.
It's a constant tightrope walk. And unfortunately for Williams, they seem to be on the wrong side of that balance for much of the season. And it wasn't just Albon. Rookie driver Franco Colapinto had his fair share of expensive mistakes too.
That's right. Colapinto had 2 crashes in Brazil alone, totaling $1.44 million.
Ouch. Then, in Las Vegas, he crashed in qualifying, costing almost $1 million. And even a seemingly minor incident with Esteban Ocon in Qatar still resulted in $420,000 of damage.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate just how much these cars cost to repair. Even a small touch can lead to significant damage, and those costs add up quickly, especially for a team like Williams, who aren't exactly flush with cash.
It makes you wonder how many chassis they had to build throughout the season just to keep up with all the damage.
Exactly. And it's not just the financial costs. The time and resources spent repairing cars could have been used for development, putting them further behind in the development race.
Absolutely. Speaking of big crashes, we can't forget Logan Sargent's fiery exit during free practice in the Netherlands.
Oh, that was a scary one. He lost control of the car and slammed into the barriers, causing a huge fire. The damage was estimated at nearly $2 million.
It's a huge blow for Williams. And sadly, that crash ultimately contributed to Sargent's departure from F1.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the pressure these drivers are under and how a single mistake can have a significant impact on their careers.
And it wasn't just the Williams drivers making costly errors. George Russell had a couple of big ones too.
That's right. He crashed heavily during free practice in Mexico, costing Mercedes $1.7 million. And then, in Australia, he had a race-ending incident that added almost $1 million to Mercedes' repair bill.
It seems even the most experienced drivers aren't immune to these costly mistakes.
It's interesting to note that both Monaco and Brazil, two of the most challenging tracks on the calendar, were also the most expensive races in terms of overall crash damage.
It makes sense. These tracks are notorious for their tight corners, high speeds, and little room for error.
They demand absolute precision and concentration from the drivers, and even the slightest lapse can have serious consequences.
It seems like there's a correlation between the difficulty of the track and the likelihood of a crash, which makes you wonder, do some tracks inherently create more risk?
It's definitely a thought-provoking question. Perhaps the layout of certain circuits puts more pressure on the drivers, leading to more mistakes.
It would be fascinating to analyze the crash data over several seasons and see if certain tracks consistently have higher crash rates and costs.
Absolutely. It could provide valuable insights into track design and safety measures. But amidst all this carnage, there's one driver who deserves special recognition for his financial prudence.
Ah, yes. Pierre Gasly, the master of frugality. He managed to complete the entire season without incurring any crash costs. $0. Nada.
An incredible feat in a sport known for its high-speed collisions and frequent incidents. It's a testament to Gasly's consistency and precision behind the wheel.
It's a stark contrast to his teammate, Esteban Ocon, whose minor collision with Gasly in Monaco still resulted in $825,000 worth of damage.
Perhaps Gasly should give Ocon a few pointers on car control. But seriously, it does make you wonder if Gasly's approach was a bit too cautious.
Interesting point. Could it be that by playing it safe, he missed out on opportunities to overtake and gain positions? Is there a trade-off between consistency and outright performance?
It's a fascinating question. Perhaps drivers who take more risks are more likely to find themselves in these expensive incidents.
But on the flip side, those risks could also lead to greater rewards, like race wins and championship points. It's a delicate balance for sure.
Absolutely. And it raises the question, is there a correlation between crash costs and driver performance?
We've seen drivers like Perez and Albon who had high crash costs and also struggled to consistently deliver top results.
On the other hand, we have Gasly, who had zero crash costs and enjoyed one of his most successful seasons to date.
It does make you wonder if there's a link.
It's something to consider. It's possible that drivers who are pushing too hard or making more mistakes are also more prone to costly incidents.
Or maybe it's just bad luck. Some drivers might simply be in the wrong place at the wrong time more often than others.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's a reminder that Formula One is a sport where risk and reward are constantly intertwined.
Drivers need to push the limits to extract the maximum performance from their cars, but they also need to manage that risk effectively to avoid those costly mistakes that can derail their season.
It's a tightrope walk, and the best drivers are the ones who can find that sweet spot, pushing hard without overstepping the mark.
So we've looked at some of the biggest crash culprits of the 2024 season, and it's clear that crashes can have a significant impact on both individual drivers and teams, both financially and in terms of performance.
It's a reminder that Formula One is a sport where every decision, every move, can have major consequences, and those consequences can be measured not just in seconds and championship points, but also in millions of dollars.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, isn't it? This whole idea of risk versus reward at the heart of Formula One. Absolutely. And it's not just about the drivers either. The teams themselves have to make these strategic decisions about how much they're willing to push, the development of their cars.
Exactly. A more aggressive development strategy might yield performance gains, but it also increases the risk of component failures, which can lead to costly crashes.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game of chess, where every move has to be very carefully considered.
Speaking of high stakes,
Yeah.
let's shift our focus to another aspect of crashes that we haven't touched on yet, the human cost.
Yeah, that's an important point. We've been talking about the financial impact, but we can't forget that these crashes involve real people with lives and careers at stake.
Exactly. While thankfully major injuries are rare in modern Formula One, the psychological toll of a crash can be immense.
Absolutely. Imagine the pressure these drivers face, knowing that one mistake could not only cost their team millions, but also potentially jeopardize their own future in the sport.
It takes incredible mental fortitude to compartmentalize those risks and perform at such a high level.
And let's not forget the mechanics and engineers who work tirelessly to build and repair these cars.
Yeah, they pour their hearts and souls into these machines, and seeing their hard work literally go up in smoke or get smashed into pieces must be incredibly disheartening.
Yeah, it's a testament to their dedication and resilience that they can bounce back from these setbacks
Yeah.
and keep pushing forward.
No. While we focused on the negative aspects of crashes, it's important to remember that they're also an inherent part of motorsport.
That's true. As much as we might wince when we see a car go off track,
Yeah.
crashes are a reminder of the raw, unpredictable nature of racing.
They're a consequence of pushing the limits of both human and machine performance.
And in a way, they add to the drama and excitement of the sport.
Of course, we never want to see anyone get hurt, but a well-executed save or a dramatic escape from a mangled car can be just as thrilling as an overtake.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that these drivers are pushing themselves and their machines to the absolute edge. And sometimes those lines get crossed.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of F1 crashes, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the concept of driver responsibility.
Right. We talk about shared responsibility in crashes, but I'm curious to get your take on how much blame should be placed on the drivers themselves.
It's a complex issue, as you said earlier. Sometimes it's a clear-cut case of driver error, where they misjudged a braking point or lost control of the car.
Yeah, in those instances, it's fair to say they bear the brunt of the responsibility.
However, there are also situations where external factors come into play, like mechanical failures or unpredictable weather conditions.
Yeah, it's important to consider all the circumstances before pointing fingers.
Absolutely, and sometimes it's simply a racing incident, where two drivers are battling for position and one of them ends up on the losing end.
Yeah, those are the tough calls, where it's difficult to assign blame definitively.
Exactly. It's a judgment call that the stewards have to make, and they often have access to data and telemetry that we as viewers don't.
So while it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and criticize drivers for their mistakes, it's crucial to remember that they're operating in a highly complex and challenging environment.
And as we've discussed throughout this deep dive, the consequences of those mistakes can be far-reaching.
Now, as we start to wrap up, I want to bring it back to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, what insights have they gleaned from our analysis? Have their perceptions of crashes changed?
I'm curious to know what stood out to them the most.
Perhaps they have a new appreciation for the financial and human costs involved.
Or maybe they've started to think differently about driver responsibility and the role of external factors in crashes.
Whatever their takeaways, we hope this deep dive has provided them with a more nuanced understanding of this often overlooked aspect of Formula One.
Absolutely. And speaking of takeaways, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We certainly have. We've explored the financial burden of crashes, the strain they put on teams, the psychological toll on drivers, and even the philosophical questions they raise about risk and responsibility.
We've delved into specific incidents, analyzed trends, and even uncovered some surprising insights.
Like the fact that even minor crashes can be incredibly expensive due to the complex technology packed into these cars.
And the incredible consistency of Pierre Gasly, who managed to navigate an entire season without a single crash, costing his team a dime.
It's been a fascinating journey through the wreckage of the 2024 F1 season.
And we've done it all thanks to the incredible data compiled by the passionate F1 community on Reddit.
Yeah, their dedication to analyzing and sharing these insights is truly commendable.
It's a testament to the power of fan engagement and the depth of knowledge within the F1 community.
And it's a reminder that there's always more to discover beneath the surface of this exhilarating sport.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners and viewers with a final thought-provoking question.
Intrigue us.
If Formula One were to implement a crash tax, where teams had to pay a penalty for each incident, How do you think it would change the dynamics of the sport?
Ooh, that's a fascinating question.
Would it encourage drivers to be more cautious? Would it lead to less overtaking and more conservative racing?
Or would teams simply factor the crash tax into their budgets and continue to push the limits?
It's a hypothetical scenario, but it raises some interesting questions about the balance between risk, reward, and financial responsibility in Formula One.
It's a topic that could spark endless debate among fans and experts alike.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So if you're watching on YouTube, head down to the comments section and let us know what you think.
Would a crash tax make Formula One safer? Or would it stifle the excitement and unpredictability that we all love?
We're eager to hear your perspectives.
And while you're down there in the comments, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the fascinating world of Formula One.
We've got plenty more insights to share.
And we love connecting with fellow motorsport enthusiasts like you.
So hit that subscribe button, spread the word, and join us on our next journey into the heart of Formula One.
Yeah, it's a great question to think about, isn't it? How do you balance the inherent risks of Formula One with the need for financial stability and driver safety?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a constant challenge for the sport's governing body. They want to encourage close racing and exciting overtakes, but they also have a responsibility to protect the drivers and ensure a level playing field for all the teams.
And as we've seen from this deep dive, crashes are a major factor in that equation. They can have a ripple effect across the entire sport, impacting team budgets, driver standings, and even the outcome of the championship.
Yeah, it's a reminder that Formula One is more than just a sport. It's a complex ecosystem where technology, finance, and human performance all intersect.
And it's a sport that continues to evolve. The introduction of the budget cap has already had a significant impact on how teams approach car development and race strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how these regulations shape the sport in the years to come, and whether they lead to fewer crashes or simply force teams to be more strategic in their risk management.
Yeah, perhaps we'll revisit this topic in a future deep dive and see how the crash data evolves over time.
That's a great idea. It would be fascinating to track these trends and see if any patterns emerge. But for now, I think we've covered just about every angle of this crash-filled season.
We've crunched the numbers,
Yeah.
analyzed the incidents, and hopefully provided our viewers with a deeper understanding of the hidden costs of Formula One.
And we've done it all thanks to the amazing community over on Reddit who compiled this incredible data.
Their passion for Formula One and their dedication to digging beneath the surface of the sport is truly inspiring.
Absolutely. We salute you, Redditors.
And to all our viewers watching on, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and engaging.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to The Har for more Formula One deep dives.
We're passionate about bringing you the insights and analysis that go beyond the headlines.
And don't forget to share this video with your fellow motorsport enthusiasts. The more the merrier.
We love building a community of Formula One fans who share our passion for the sport.
So until next time, keep those wheels turning, and we'll see you on the next lap.